Welcome to the It's Been Said podcast. I'm your host, SAI Executive Director Lisa Ramey. Today's episode is a special edition of the It's Been Said podcast. Dave Daughton, Government Relations Director, will discuss his perspective on current legislative topics relevant to district and school administrators. He'll offer his insights on this subject matter periodically over the coming months. Let's hear from Dave.
Hi, everyone. This is Dave Daughton with School Administrators of Iowa, presenting your legislative update for week 13 of the legislative session. We are getting closer to the end of the session, I think. The last scheduled day of the legislative session is April 21st, but it's really likely that the legislators will at some point be sent home and eventually brought back to finish the session, whether that's before or after April 21st. So we shall see where that goes. This is the time in the session when we see legislators actually walking over to the opposite chamber to discuss bills with their cohorts. We don't see much of that in the earlier parts of the session. So some bills that moved this week. Senate File 273 requires reporting of grooming behavior to the Board of Educational Examiners. That bill goes to the governor. Senate File 176 allows for students that are open enrolled to an online school be allowed to participate in activities in their resident district. That also goes to the governor. Senate File 2219 is a student absences bill. This was originally the 4-H and FFA bill, but it was amended and changed so it became a bill that requires all absences due to school activities be considered exempt absences. That bill goes back to the Senate. Senate File 2428 is the first attempt at a compromise bill on the student behavior. This bill was amended and contains language from both the House and Senate bills. There were some positive changes that we liked, but there were also some that we didn't like that we had requested to be removed or to be changed. Stay tuned for possible actions on this bill. That bill goes back to the Senate as is, as it was approved by the House. House File 2591 is the bill that changed the ineligibility period for open enrolled students to 140 calendar days, which was a fine bill. However, this bill was amended to include language that would allow eighth graders to be eligible for high school sports. There are a lot of problems with that and a lot of potential ramifications that need to be discussed. So stay tuned on that bill as well. That bill, as approved by the House, goes back to the Senate. House File 2752 is actually a positive bill. It's a good one on the Teach Iowa grants. The language adjusts the priorities for the grants to include an emphasis on special education teachers as well as teachers in rural areas, and that bill moves on to the Senate. Senate File 2286 is the public investment or the banking bill. That bill sets guidelines on where districts can invest their funds. We believe that should be a local decision and believe that what the bill proposes actually stifles competition for interest rates. So that bill is approved and it goes to the House. Senate File 2367 is the MAHA bill, and as you remember, that was the Make America Healthy bill that had a lot of education things injected into it. I'm happy to report that the Senate amended that bill to remove the PE and extracurricular section, all of it, except for the physical fitness testing requirement. It also removed the nutrition waiver language. It made some good adjustments to the screen time portion and included some additional exceptions to the 60-minute rule. So that bill goes back to the House for conversation. Senate File 2231 is a religious exemptions bill. There's a lot of stuff in that bill, but does include the requirement that public schools have 28E agreements with community partners for preschool program. That bill was amended to require those programs to follow the same pre-K guidelines as public schools, which is a good amendment. Included in that bill originally, or at least in this iteration of it, there was an amendment to include the entire social studies curriculum. That bill was removed from consideration, or that amendment was removed from consideration. So it is not in that bill. However, stay tuned because I fully expect that amendment, that portion, to show up in another bill somewhere. Senate File 2472 is the Senate property tax bill. That bill was approved and sent to the House. There are some changes from the prior Senate bill. Some of the key bill points for schools include the following: scaling down the levy authority for the management fund, reducing the maximum PEPAL levies to $1.18 for voted PEPAL and 24 cents for board approved. It lowers the debt levies to $1.89 and $2.84. It limits district unspent authorized budget, UAB. It limits that amount to 35% of prior year expenditures and requires boards to set targets for what they want their UAB to be. And it exempts schools from TIF considerations. Surprisingly to me, anyway, the bill passed 41-4, with only one Democrat voting against it, along with 3 Republicans. No matter what, there's going to be additional conversation in the coming weeks on the property tax issue, but it does seem that they're going to pass something, as indicated by moving this bill forward. A couple other bills moved through some committees. House File 2440 was a non-public transportation bill that had to do with a mistake made by the Department of Education in a school district, and this rectifies and solves that mistake. House Study Bill 768 was a late bloomer, and it allows schools to increase the proposed property tax amount in a budget if the SSA has not been approved by March 5th. We're still working on that bill to make sure it does what we think it's going to do, but that bill moved out of committee. So those were the bills that moved. The one other thing I want to mention is, if you haven't already, you may want to review the article that came out about the Supreme Court ruling on the books and library bill that was a couple years ago. You may want to contact your school attorney or Matt Carver at SAI to get input on that. That's going to be different decisions for different districts, but I want to make sure you are aware of that and you can look into it. The governor signed several bills on Thursday, but there were no education bills included. We will continue to push the additional bills and try to fix some of the bills that we talked about above in the next couple of weeks. Hang in there. The session and the school year are getting closer to being over. Have a great weekend. Take care.